Well, welcome to Technology and Education. Today I'm Richard Smith.
And I'm Caroline Crawford, and we are coming to you from the University of Houston Clear Lake in Houston, Texas, USA.
And today we are discussing one-to-one computer initiatives for schools K through 12. And Caroline, what do you think is one of the key things that you have to keep in mind for a one-to-one implementation?
One of the key things? Only one of the key things. I would talk about curriculum, looking at the instructional goals, the teaching goals, yes, and the assessment that's allocated along with the goals.
Let's take a look at that goal thing, because
okay.
I think a lot of
obviously my answer was correct. Woo!
Well, I think a lot of times, and this is true over the years, whether it's one-to-one or a one-computer classroom, these implementations are done without any attention to matching the software and hardware that's going to be used with the computers to the educational goals that have been set.
It's a normal issue, yes. People haven't thought it through, don't know enough to think it through.
Yeah, and that's most frequently comes out in the goal setting for the entire project, where you'll usually hear something like, the use of the computers, and in this case the one-to-one computing, is going to lead to academic improvement on the part of the student academic achievement gains. And this is not going to happen unless you have carefully matched the software that you're going to use or provide for the teachers
to the subject matter, to the instructional objectives.
Exactly.
And then assessing it appropriately.
Yeah. And then the second thing that what I think is very important is that you have to arrange for teacher buy-in for the one-to-one computing effort, because without that, the effort is going to be doomed to failure. There are a lot of times, I think, where one-to-one computing efforts are initiated on the part of school district senior staff without doing the proper groundwork with their teachers to make certain that the teachers understand the goals and objectives of the use of these computers, and that the teachers agree that it will be a good thing for the teachers.
Well, having been in the classroom for many years as well, I can tell you for a fact that every 5-6 years, the upper administration come up with this great idea, whether it be learning styles or technology or whatever, and most teachers have been around long enough, and the younger ones finally realize that it's a little favorite of the upper administration that you're just going to have to deal with for a while and act like you're engaging with their expectations. Because in 5 or 6 years, they're going to have a new flavor, a new favorite, and what happened before has nothing to do with reality. You never received the professional development for it to understand what they were even talking about, nor support towards integrating it into the classroom environment.
Well, the key is that if you're asking teachers to use computers, and I think a great many of teachers these days do want to use computers for instruction,
sure,
but if you're asking them to adopt something such as a one-to-one initiative where there's a lot of money that's going to be spent and a lot of it depends on the teachers using these computers, well, then the teachers need to be involved in a program which will not increase the amounts of work that they have to do to achieve their academic goals for their students, but will decrease the amount of work that they will have to do.
Well,
that's a key.
Show me the usefulness. Okay, you want us to implement one-to-one technology in the classroom. Great idea. Show me how it is useful towards reaching my instructional objectives in my classroom.
Okay, so
these overarching statements are lovely and cute and adorable, but when it comes to the people on the ground who have to do the work, meaning the classroom educators, professional educators, show me how it's going to make my life better for my students.
And in order to do that, one, you have to understand the problems that the teachers have, the instructional problems and the administrative problems that the teachers have in the classroom that they themselves feel that are problems, not the ones that the administration feels that are the problems that the teachers should be having, but rather the problems that the teachers have right now that they feel are important problems. Then you have to get with the teachers and
it should be a grassroots effort.
Well, you need to review the software applications that are going to be used with these devices, let's say, because a one-to-one implementation can be a desktop computer, which I would say these days is not that likely, or
Bad
a
idea.
laptop, and then you have a variety of different types of laptops to use. If it were me, I would be using an Ultrabook or a MacBook Air. Or it can now, it's more and more popular are the tablet types of computers, whether it's an iPad or one of the other operating systems such as Windows 8 operating system and on a tablet.
But still, who is the troubleshooter?
Each one has its advantages, and you have to decide on the part of the classroom teacher which one of those pieces of hardware you're going to use. But then again, what software are you going to use? Now, if you have
and if it's multiple platform,
yeah, well, if
software,
you have,
if it's multiple platform.
well, you're always going to have the same. You should, if it's one-to-one computing, have the same platform for each student. So otherwise, you're going to complicate the life of your data processing department and your teachers. So, what needs to be decided now is if the school district wants academic achievement levels to rise, then a significant part of that software on those computers needs to be direct instructional software in particular areas. And that direct instructional software will be able to treat students who are advanced, because that software can move them up for even further. Treat students
You're
who are...
working under the assumption that it's very strong software
Yes,
that's chosen.
that's my assumption.
With a strong undergirding for the
Yes.
data-driven information.
It's been around for like 30 years now. It's a lot of
Well,
strong stuff. But let's...
That doesn't
then you
necessarily
have to
mean
have-
it's appropriate
Right,
for the
okay,
classroom.
so that comes under software selection. So now let's say that...
But that's only good for the knowledge base, the lower level learning.
Well, that's a very good knowledge base, because that's what we're testing on. So if you want to show academic gains on a standardized test, you better have
If you
software...
want to reflect it, yeah.
You better have software that is direct instructional software that's going to solve part of the problems that teachers have, and that is getting students to learn in areas where they have deficiencies or where they are advanced.
But that's not taking the
beyond
instructional component away from the instructor. The instructor still should be presenting the information and supporting the learners while they are working within this software environment as well.
Granted. But beyond that, then you have software which might be more, you can term application software. And this would be software such as film editing software.
Oh, production software.
Yeah.
Okay.
Use a software where you are going to use for to develop projects and so on and so forth. And
For the higher order thinking skill level.
well, what we commonly call higher order thinking skill, but software
playing in
that
Bloom's
allows
taxonomy,
that
yeah.
allows the students to engage in a variety of projects. Once they stop using, so you're using direct instruction for to solve one part of the problem, and then you're using other software, application software, production software, to enable the teachers, those teachers that are interested, if they are already teaching these types of processes, then they can use that software. It'll facilitate the instruction that they are doing, because their students can now produce videos if they want on a particular subject area. They can produce online newsletters. If it's a history class, you can produce a newsletter of what would be a typical day in 1775, for instance. They can do video interviews of people in history. So there's all that sort of stuff you're going to do. The software will enable you to do, and the one-to-one will enable you to do.
As well as capture.
But you're right. But that is not the type of thing that was guaranteed or to either maintain or raise scores on standardized tests, which is a big problem these days.
Not on the standardized test.
And so it also
but it is
software.
critical thinking skills and creativity, which are important.
Yes,
for
but also
our
you want to have
citizenry.
software, and the computers are capable of. You have an opportunity now on another creative level to have your students be in contact with students in another classroom in the school, which would be nice. Another school,
Another country,
another city,
halfway
another
around the
country.
world.
Right, all these sorts of things. And once you go halfway around the world, you've got other scheduling problems, which are never.
Yes.
People don't
But it
stop
doesn't
and
have to
think
be
of it.
synchronous. It can be asynchronous.
Right, it would be asynchronous, but those types of things are usually sold as synchronous, with the designers of the project completely forgetting that a school in another country might be 6 hours ahead or 6 hours behind. But that's just a side issue.
But
Another thing,
an important aside to mention.
right? Another thing to consider is that if you want to have these computers used, Then you also have to have a maintenance plan for the computers. You have to decide
Troubleshooting plan.
a troubleshooting plan. You have to decide what is going to, if you have a plan to supply another computer if a student breaks a computer, because if the lessons are dependent on those computers, then you have to have a replacement plan.
Well,
Otherwise,
but
it's
if
going to
we're
be a
talking
problem.
about one-to-one computing, are we talking about a classroom set of computers, or is the hardware associated with the student?
That's the other question that has to be decided. Do the computers stay in the classroom, or do these computers, if they're laptops or tablets, do they go home with the students? If they go home with the students, who is responsible for repairing them if the
Or
student
replacing
drops
them.
them, or replacing them? That has to go into
Well, would that be the
plan.
same consideration as a textbook per se? Because I remember being yelled at several times by my administrators. Well, why didn't the student bring the textbook back? It's like, I don't know.
Well,
I've asked them and asked them,
whatever-
what do you want me to do?
Whatever it is, that we're dealing with something that's costs anywhere between $3,000 and $1,000. There has to be part of your one-to-one computing plan has to
Replacement
cover that. Another thing that will have to be taken into consideration is teacher training.
Oh, that's perhaps one of the more important
And
components.
teacher training goes hand in hand with having teachers understand the advantages and disadvantages of using computers in a one-to-one setup. Then who does that training? Does the district have its own staff, or does the district going to try and use trainers provided by the company that sold you either the software or the hardware?
Well, it also depends on the quality of the training as well. Having someone sit there and tell you how wonderful it is and let me show you how easy the software is to
Right.
use
So
is
the district-
significantly different than using it in the classroom yourself.
Right. The district has to decide and design that training so the teachers have a hands-on experience with the computers.
With support.
And without wasting a lot of time talking about the wonders of what can happen, just get in there, get their hands on the computers, and show them how things work, and then show them how the particular package can save them time while they are instructing, because that's the name of the game. If the computer
Makes
takes
their
the
job easier, saves them time,
they will use
then
it.
it's useful.
If it doesn't, if it's going to complicate their life, they're not going to be used, no matter how wonderful the senior staff says they're going to be.
Well, and on the other hand, the fact people are always asking, so how comfortable are you with technology? They're always asking these teachers, how comfortable are you with the technology? Well, I have a computer at home and I have a cell phone and I use it frequently, so yeah, I think I'm an expert. But there's a significant shift between using it as personal product and instructional usage.
Yes, excellent point, and that's what has to be accounted for in the training. So if the training
And support.
training is not good, if the support is not good, if you don't have a teacher, what we used to call teacher technologist in that school to help those teachers out, if you only have one for every 4 schools,
It also depends on the quality of the teacher technologist.
you're going to have a problem. We'll assume that you have a well-trained teacher technologist as part of this.
Who cares
plan.
and engages is
Right.
in the classroom
But
to help
that-
model and mentor
Yes,
the teachers.
but that has to be taken care of considered when developing a one-to-one computing.
But most people
plan.
don't. Oh, well, the teachers can figure it out. No, that's not the way it works.
Right. That's not.
Personal use is significantly different than instructional
That
use.
is not going to happen. And then you want to know if your teacher, everybody's going to have a computer in the classroom, and you are going to use it for both direct instruction and for project-oriented types of uses. If it's for direct instruction, you're going to want to track the students on how well they are doing and where they're going to have problems. So built into the software that you're using for direct instruction, you want to make certain that there's a database that's tracking the students as to where they need help and where they're doing well, and also
Working under the assumption that that is available in the chosen software.
well, you have
for
to buy some
implementation.
sophisticated software for that. But most software these days can do that.
Well,
I
but
think
that's not necessarily mandatory. Very useful, and if you can find it, that's great. But the fact that the instructor is walking around working with each of the students, viewing what they're doing, just like you would in a normal classroom.
Well, there's another complication.
helps.
See, the instructor does not have to walk around. The instructor can sit at his or her classroom desk and
Depending
watch,
upon the setup, yes.
and watch what each student is doing. The instructor also can have the option stopping all computers so that the instructor can add some value to what's happening, or as you say, the instructor can walk around and while the students are on the computers, or part of the class can be on the computer and others can be doing something else. So there's any number of configurations that can be going on.
But much of that is mandated by the quality of the product that's in the
Yes.
classroom, as well as the quality of your instructional technologists.
But I would say that
Information
if you're
technology
going to have a
people.
one-to-one computing plan, the most important thing is, decide what the goals are of the plan. Don't have a general goal where you say, well, our plan is to have all students will increase their academic achievement levels.
Yeah, what does that
if
mean?
if you don't have software that's going to deal directly with that problem. So you have to keep that into consideration. The other thing is make certain that you've budgeted enough money for this plan to work successfully.
And sustainably.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to replace the technology every 2 to 3 years, let's say.
Make certain that you have a computer that is not going to break with fairly rough treatment, because they're going to be carried from classroom to classroom, I imagine, or in many scenarios they're going to get a very they're going to be under constant use if everything is working right. If not, then they'll be used as doorstops, which I've seen happen.
And I'm kind of a klutz anyway, so if someone gives me technology, yeah, of course I'm going to be very careful with it, but sooner or later it's going to drop.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just a klutz. That's the way it's going to happen, and I assume everyone else is the same.
Well, we're just going to have to stop.
Assume.
We're going to have to stop here.
Leave on that assumption.
On the assumption that you're a klutz.
Well, I am.
Because
What do you
we've
do?
reached the end of another edition of Technology and Education Today. I'm Richard Smith.
And I'm Caroline Crawford, and we are coming to you from the University of Houston Clear Lake in Houston, Texas, USA. Bye!